you could say quite accurate. Like, if you're in a house and suddenly it catches fire and you run out of, I'm over here thinking about that's over there, is just the very nature of it is projection. So it's very difficult for us to, and there's no requirement to be free of projections, but if there are other, do you notice how it looks like you're looking at someone else right now? It's an intense separation that's happening all the time from the time we're born and raised, and we have our mother and our father and the world and everything else that's at a distance. The very nature of physical existence just reinforces the separation, whereas the area where what Jason is, what he was talking about today, about working with dreams, that's an area that, you take out two really important elements there. You change them into a different, so they have a different quality to them, time and space. Now, we're not saying it's necessarily arbitrary, but it certainly isn't like it is here. It's not linear. So it's a different area. And that's an area where also awareness is what's important rather than some kind of accomplishment situation. Yes?
Where are dreams projected from? Or not dreams, thoughts?
Get dreams on the mind. Where are thoughts projected from? I think it's it's something to do with the way the awareness shows up in terms of nerve endings and in terms of just the whole complex of being a biological situation of a human being or a living being that has nerve endings of all kinds. And so the thoughts are just an aspect of consciousness. Just you could say, just thinking of Kozan's dog, Casey. If you look at Casey, she's having some kind of thought processes going on. I mean, might not be exactly human, probably not human. No, with Casey it could be. But, there's some kind of something going on there with her, just like if you look at a human face when they're living or expressing themselves or thinking over something. You can sense there's something very similar to what's happening with you when you're thinking about something, contemplating something, or worrying about something, or planning something. And as soon as you come into the driveway up in Traverse, Casey sees you and immediately thinks, I don't know what she thinks, but it's something like a stick thrower. I would spot one of those anywhere. But she would go and get a stick and come and drop it here. So you'll throw a stick for it. Some kind of thought process is happening there, as it probably is with all different kinds of animals.
So is there a difference then between habituation, where, just like in the example you gave, she's habituated to throwing sticks, and somehow that must give her some kind of satisfaction or something?
Like Pavlov's dog.
Yeah, but would that be the same with the feeling, craving, and grasping then? Does it become a habituation?
Well, it could be. I think so. I think if you continually keep fueling that, you have a feeling, and then you want something, and then you reach for it. And I think if you're doing that, then the space or the awareness, it just happens of a piece. It's just one entire situation, whereas the sitting practice of meditation over time allows some ventilation or some more space to come into those things that we are describing using concepts. There seems to be an area where the mind's actually doing something like what the concept is pointing to. And if we just continue to do that, then it's called a habit. And then that's further complicated by, let's say, if you're addicted to say cigarettes. The very bodies gets used to that nicotine or whatever it is, and it wants it, and it will begin to run the whole show and make that whole structure of feeling and craving and grasping even be more solid or opaque, so you can't even see the structure. You just want it, and then difficult to swimming upstream to try to break into that or break it down or just refuse to do it.
Earlier, were you saying that some teachers teach that the fuel is cut off between the feeling and the craving?
Yes, I've read it that way. I'm not sure where. I don't know if it was some delineation on, and it was a traditional text that was saying that was the place that you need to just stop having your feelings, and that's what sitting practice and meditation will eventually will lead to not having any wanting anything else, and not how it looks here. And I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm right. I'm saying that it looks like depending on aspects of that, of whatever that whole complicated mechanism is. There might be areas where you could work with it as a feeling, and there are other areas where the only way you can really work with it is to actually have the craving, and then don't do it. I think that shows up in people's awareness in different ways. I think some people have a natural kind of a discipline, I don't know if I'd say it's easier for some people, but something like that's probably happening. Just like some people can sit and meditate for long hours without too much trouble, and other people it's excruciating for them to do that. And you could draw all kinds of conclusions. You could say with a person that it's easy, it means they're not getting anywhere. Whereas a person who's suffering and can't hardly stand it, and smoke's coming out of their ears, they're making progress. I mean, you could say anything you want. You can interpret it, and if you're, if you're into sales, you could probably make any one of those sound pretty good. Read any book on mindfulness practice, and it can be by the more initials they have after their names, the more believable they are. Not because of the initials so much, but because they've been trained in how to think a certain way. This is true with Buddhists also, not just John Kabat-Zinn. Interesting, no one laughed at that. I thought it was quite funny. What a friendly little gnat. Wasn't wrong. So we have about 8 or 9 minutes, so if there's more questions, I'd be happy to address them. It doesn't have to be specifically about this, it could be about something else. Something arises, we have a feeling about it. There's contact of any kind. We have some kind of a feeling. Like I was saying, looking at someone's face, looking at anyone, you can actually see that there's a quality that arises no matter what the contact is, whether it's meeting your friend, meeting your enemy, meeting someone who's neutral, someone you don't know. You'll notice that it's difficult to find out what it is. If you go into a drugstore, go into Walgreens, and you're going to buy you're going to go in there and buy a pack of smokes. I don't think there's anybody that smokes here. So you're going in to buy some toothpaste or something, and you walk up to the counter, and as soon as you look at somebody you've never seen before, look at them, and the qualities that arise there are very, very complicated. There's you're seeing somebody that looks like somebody you know, looks a little bit, whether they're black or white or Asian or all those things affect us some. I'm not saying that we're not necessarily just talking about some kind of hidden prejudice, but the kind of prejudice that we're conditioned just because of our culture. And I think it's very good not to get rid of any kind of prejudice, but just be aware of it. Because if you get rid of it, then the very nature of prejudice is to go underground. So just be aware. Isn't it interesting how someone you've never met before, you've never seen, you never even talked to, how you have certain kinds of feelings about them. And it's dependent upon all kinds of things. On their tone of their voice, on their eye color, on their posture, on the way they address you. We can actually get irritated by someone who's just trying to do their job, just trying to make change and charge you for the merchandise. And yet you can feel a kind of an irritation. Whereas someone else, we don't really want to leave. We really like them. We like to listen to them. We like their sense of humor, or all those dependently originated situations are affecting us. You can't really separate yourself, nor do you need to. By not separating yourself, you actually will get in less trouble. Then you might think that you need to protect yourself so you don't have feelings that you can't control, that kind of paranoia. When it might be better, to say it in a relative way, to actually feel everything. Feel the negativity, feel the anger, feel anger come up. Feeling, if you do anything with it, then you've already gone to the subtle form of grasping, and then a subtle form of craving to get rid of it, and then an even more subtle form of upadana, or grasping. Go ahead.
In that situation where we're seeing that we're trying to protect ourselves from having a feeling like that, should we move into that instead?
I wouldn't do anything with it. I wouldn't move in. I wouldn't move out. And I wouldn't stay there and try to prove something to yourself that you can handle this or that you can be present without. Just whatever's happening, just be there with that. More? Yes, sir.
You mentioned ignorance can be grasping. Is that as a form of covering up grasping?
Yeah, it's the cover. It's not. It's because if you cover it up, then how it got there in the first place is still operating. So if you see the more obvious, the three poisons are, I want it, or I don't want it, and then this one here is more difficult to see, and it's there are people who function that way. They just it just feels better just to shut down on everything. We all know someone, maybe it's the person that looks you in the mirror in the morning, whose style is to just not be there. Sometimes we have a conversation with someone who they can talk, they speak our language, and they have an expression in their voice, and they have a job, and they have opinions and ideas and everything, but there's some quality of, it's like there's part of their awareness has been shut way down. So they just, they don't hear you. They don't really hear what you're saying. They hear what they think you're saying. Sometimes it's called apparent. Parents are notorious for being without end. I had a couple. Actually, I had three. More. So we have a minute left if there's a final question. Anything else on that, Robert? Mhm. Okay, thank you so much.
We'll stand and dedicate the merit in the back of our red chant books. And I'd like to remind everybody again about the Dana boxes in the hallway. As you know, we do depend on your financial support to help us help others.
Mirror this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Ji-ho san chi shi hu shi son bu sa mo ko sa mo ko ja. The 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna, Paramita.
O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect SokukoJi Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light.